Hi everyone, my name is Tyler Warden. Welcome to Destination Truth. If you're new to my channel, this channel covers topics that the mainstream media don't like to cover or that they do not dive into the meat of. So I cover a number of other things regarding philosophy, facts that people don't like to talk about, as well as many other things that we will not be getting into in this video. But this video is going to be about the decision, the rather recent decision of the Boy Scouts of America to start allowing girls into the Boy Scouts and to change the name from the Boy Scouts of America, BSA, to Scouts BSA, and just hope that all the girls forget what BSA stands for. Really stupid decision. And let me tell you why. But before I tell you why, let me tell you who this video is for and why I'm making it and what exactly are the points I'm trying to make. So first, who is this for? It is for parents first and foremost. Any parent that would like to see their children, their boys or girls, joining the Boy Scouts or Scouts BSA or Girl Scouts, this video is for you. Secondly, it's also for any Boy Scouts like myself who have basically gone through the scouting process and have come out of it with a lot of good experiences. Also current Boy Scouts as well, because I want to make some points to you as well. Why am I making it? To save hopefully thousands and thousands of boys and girls and families a whole lot of grief and potentially a whole lot of money due to legal fees. Because there is a shitstorm coming down from this stupid decision on behalf of the Boy Scouts of America. Why did they make this decision? First and foremost, they say it's because they had dwindling numbers. And why is that, you think? I personally believe it has something to do with their decision to allow homosexuals as leaders within the Boy Scouts of America, because if I was a parent during that time, I think I'd be a lot less likely to encourage my children to join that what was a fraternal organization, because now I realize that they are letting in anyone who sees it as a courtship grounds for potential prey. And I'm not calling all homosexuals pedophiles by any means necessary, but there has been a history of many homosexuals that I know of personally that have come out and said that when they were young they were sexually molested or something happened to them by an older adult male, which helped shape them into the people they became when they were adults. For some, that ended up being fine and whatever. I'm not here to judge, but as a parent, your job is to provide a safe place for your children to have a healthy childhood, because childhood, in my opinion, is really quite sacred in the sense that you need to have a healthy childhood for you to have a healthy adult life, because as an adult, you affect the world in greater ways than you do as a child. And so as a child, you have the opportunity, thanks to your parents, to have a healthy basically platform to build either a great adulthood that you will give back to society and your culture, or a toxic one where you are basically become a pariah upon society, maybe a criminal or worse. We don't have to go there. Nonetheless, bad childhoods are hard to judge, because some people can go through a bad childhood where there was divorce and alcohol abuse and such and come out good people. But that's because they saw just how bad their childhoods were. But on the same hand, you'll see many more people that had bad childhoods become who their parents were in many ways, replicating some of the same actions or behaviors that they saw their parents doing when they were children, because that was normal to them. Now, I'm not Stefan Molyneux, but if you don't know who he is, you can get a whole lot of great firsthand experiences listening to some of his call-in shows. I'm an avid listener of his, and I also have a great network of my own of people that I talk to on a real basis because of how open I am. I'm non-judgmental. I'm an Aquarius. Maybe that's why. I don't know. But I'm an open book about myself and to others, and I don't really judge. I talk about things in like, okay, well, that makes sense. If this happened, then it makes sense for that to happen. So we don't have to judge people, really, when we talk about these things. But point being is, the dwindling membership of the Boy Scouts could have been affected by that, but even if it wasn't at all whatsoever, I don't think it should have cared. I don't think the Boy Scouts of America should have been acting like some kind of a government agency where they would rather do anything at all in their power than to have to shrink their organization. Because that's what they're forced to do. And they decided not to. Instead of shrinking their administration, they decided, how can we get more members? Let's allow girls. What a terrible, terrible decision. Because what they're going to allow is a whole ball of wax that I'm about to jump into right now. So what's wrong with letting girls into the Boy Scouts of America or Scouting BSA, which, again, Scouting Boy Scouts of America. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Okay, so first and foremost, Boy Scouts of America is a fraternal organization, always has been. And why has there been so many fraternal organizations within the history of the world? Because of a series of different reasons. One, men are competitive. Two, men are even more competitive and willing to do rash acts when there are females around, because men, especially within the ages of puberty, are even more likely to do stupid things on the off chance that it gets female attention and basically helps them build rapport. And boys in the 12 to 18 range, I mean, honestly, some of the time, they might do stuff because of that reason without even knowing it. It's kind of built into our DNA. It's human nature. And this is just one other example that I'm very upset about, because it's basically people refusing to acknowledge basic human behavior, in the sense that they're basically saying like, no, hear no evil, see no evil, say no evil, in the sense that those are bad things, and bad things don't happen in this world. That is a grossly naive and childish and foolish ideology to have. So boys aged 12 to 18 are going through puberty. Their hormones are raging. And I can tell you right now, on every single scouting activity I did as a young man, the scouts outnumbered the chaperones or adults that were there by about 12 to 1. Maybe more sometimes, but usually it's about 10 to 12 to 1 person. So, if you start letting in some girls, and you do not have literally a 1-to-1 ratio of adult chaperones to children, you will have the most extreme case of molestation, rape, and violence that you will have ever seen throughout American history, probably. Now, I have to say probably because I'm not psychic here, but let's just make a case for what I'm trying to say. You have a Boy Scout camp. Let's say it lasts 5 days. Each scout is bunked with 1 to 3 other scouts in a tent of some kind. Of course, at least for this part of it, it would be same sex. I'm sure that they'd be that knowledgeable enough to make sure that these kids do not mingle. But let's just say the camp is going to be co-ed, meaning there is, girls and boys sleeping in tents within the same campsite. That means when the adults are tired of chaperoning all day and they go to sleep at an early time of maybe 10:30 or 11, those kids will stay up literally all night. Like, they don't have to sleep. If they don't want to, they'll just take being tired the next day if they need to. But these children, if they have any kind of feelings of connection with these other children, they will act on them, because that's what prepubescent and boys do in the insane time that puberty is. There's a whole lot of things going on in their heads that adults to this day, many females to this day, do not fully understand. And I myself have only started to come to terms with some of the actions that I made as a child, because I've realized, wow, that makes sense that I was acting so crazy, like some kind of an animal, because my hormones were racing, and I wanted to do X, and I was willing to do anything necessary to get to my goal. I can make an example. For example, at one giant a play production, there was hundreds of people involved in this giant play that I was in. And I was a 14-year-old dancer, or maybe 15-year-old dancer in this presentation, and there was a girl who was a singer in it, and we had some chemistry, and even with hundreds of people around, hundreds of chaperones chaperoning these young people, I was willing to ditch anyone to try to get this girl one-on-one, to make something happen. Luckily, nothing did happen. But nonetheless, I was willing to, jump over fences, ditch in the middle of meetings when people are talking to try to make this happen. And I was a 14-year-old boy. My actions, I can defend now, because I realize many other boys in similar situations would have done the same. Okay, so in a Boy Scouts of America type setting, where you're in the wilderness and you are not likely to have chaperones equal to the number of scouts that are present, there is a unmeasurable amount of situations where you might get boys and girls doing all kinds of things that they think are good, but could lead to all kinds of nasty situations where it leads the scouts to be liable for facilitating behavior that parents are not okay with. Now, maybe if it seemed mutual, the parents don't go to court over something, but there will be also situations where a number of boys, perhaps, are trying to play in a river or something, or do something, and girls want to be a part of it. The boys are having a good time and don't want their camaraderie to be broken by this girl, and so they abuse her. They hit her, or they throw stuff at her. They hurt her. That's also a likely situation. Or even worse, a girl can't sleep and wants to be entertained, and can hear the boys in their tent not too far away at nighttime. The adults are asleep. A girl or girls are curious about what those boys are doing, and they climb out of their tent and go join them to play, who knows, midnight poker. I mean, as a Boy Scout, there's innumerable times where I was awake well past 1 or 2 a.m. because I had excess energy, because I was going through puberty, lots of hormones raging, and playing games or sitting around the fire into the wee hours of the morning, even though I knew I had stuff to do the next day. So imagine girls joining those activities. Personally, I see it immediately leading to things like strip poker, or all kinds of bad activities that basically could lead easily to situations that are totally inappropriate for children to be easily involved with on a regular basis. That means, when I say regular basis, that means these activities stacked on top of each other. So let's say just one game of strip poker does happen, people see each other naked or something. That means next time you've already gotten past that barrier. What can you do to top that? I'm not joking here. I could give innumerable examples here, guys, but my point being is the Scouts are going to get sued in short order to the point of extinction. So I don't see the Boy Scouts of America existing for even another 5 years. I think there will be tons of court cases where children, namely girls, because they will be outnumbered without a doubt, they will be vastly outnumbered by boys. They will be abused, sexually abused, harassed, molested, raped even. It's all possible. Anything is possible when you have a bunch of boys that, quite literally on a scientific level, their frontal lobe, which is in charge of your super ego and you're not supposed to do certain things, that whole part of the male brain doesn't fully develop until the age of 25. Okay, so these boys are going to do what they're going to do, and if if they're not high school age yet, well, once they're in high school they're going to know right from wrong. But I mean, middle school age, trust me, bad things are going to happen. All kinds of bad things are going to happen. Middle school age is the age where the hormones are raging the most, and boys make really poor decisions based on impulse. So, yeah, I just don't see the Scouts being able to survive this. If you are a parent and you're looking for an organization for your girls, put them in the Girl Scouts and put your boys in the Boy Scouts. And if enough girls start joining the Scouts BSA, take all of your kids out. I'm sorry. Something else needs to be formed. But unless you as parents are willing to both, you and your partner, unless both of you go on every scouting outing with both of your children and strictly basically watch them like a falcon around the girls and boys and such, I cannot tell you how many bad things could happen and probably will happen, because there are thousands of Scouts. Even with the dwindling numbers that they've confessed to, it doesn't matter. Let's say only one boy and one boy out of every 1,000 kids and one girl out of every 5,000 kids joins the Scouts. Major metropolitan areas like the Bay Area, in which I live, you will have thousands of children in these organizations. And if a scout troop like the one I was in finds itself being too small, my scout troop, I think, only had around 12 to 15 scouts at any given time. Maybe as little as, I think there was a short period of time where we had less than 10. Maybe we only had like 8 or 9. Still, it was never a problem. 8 or 9 kids with 1 or 2 chaperones, that was perfect. Now, if you needed bigger numbers, we would partner with another troop of about an equal amount, and all of a sudden we had almost 30 kids. We had 25 to 30 kids. So that will happen where you partner up troops, and that is another setup for disaster, where you have people that don't know each other very well and they think they can get away with doing something because they're like, oh, we don't hang out with that troop very often. Like, these kinds of things will happen, guys. I'm just saying, these rationale of a child's brain, I think I can relate. I was a kid once. Not to mention I was a scout once. And lastly, I think I've covered this enough already, but I want to cover one last thing about why this is such a shame. And the reason for me is because the Boy Scouts of America gave me something that I find invaluable. Again, I was an Eagle Scout, and I made it not to the bronze, but to the silver palm. Almost got the gold palm, but I needed 3 more merit badges in like 1 month's time. Didn't have enough time before I turned 18. And, that was a shame, because actually when I turned 18, I realized I already had my Eagle at like 17, and was like, well, I'm not going to quit now. This is a lot of fun. I like scouting. Like, why not get some more? And I could have gone all the way to get the Buffalo status or whatever, the Buffalo life or something. I don't know. But as a Boy Scout, usually you have a whole bunch of jobs within the troop, such as scribe, senior patrol leader, junior patrol leader. You've got the chief something, I forget. You've got the medic, who's supposed to always bring a medical supply to every event. You've got a number of different jobs. And the point being is all of this stuff holds up to the motto of the Boy Scouts, which is be prepared. Be prepared for anything. And so you have certain people kind of training themselves with a little bit of adult mentorship into being good at certain things. And to get everyone kind of co-trained, or to be trained in everything, you change those roles regularly. With a troop the size of mine, we kind of broke that rule fairly often, where
Mhm.
instead of always changing the roles every 6 months to a year, it kind of came down to what you wanted to do and you were willing to do. And so, like for me, for example, I ended up being the senior patrol leader for I think over 2 years. I think like 2.5 years, and it's because I did more than the other kids were willing to do, and the other kids saw me doing a good job, and they didn't want to have to work that hard. Because I would actually, call and meet with some of the adults and be like, okay, well, so and so has this, I have this, they have this. We need X, Y, Z. That's gonna cost something. Can you adults make that happen? Stuff like that. So I was very involved, and most importantly, I learned a lot of leadership skills that I would have not normally had, especially leading other males. That brings me to my last point, which is all about camaraderie of fraternal organizations. So, if you're a woman or a mother, especially, or a girl, you need to understand that males are extremely competitive by nature. That's why we play games that are usually win lose scenarios, like a zero sum game where there's losers and winners. We're competitive. And when females are around, we are even more so. We are more willing to do all kinds of things, including cheat sometimes, because it's built into our DNA to basically want to compete over female attention. Um, and I can tell you right now, when you are in a fraternal organization, something magical happens where basically you stop being quite as competitive and it becomes sport like, where it's not like competitive and, ooh, you lost, I won, booyah. It's more like, oh, I did it. Yes. And it's like, oh, you did it too. Awesome. I don't care about how long it took either of us. It's just like we did it. We learned how to do X, Y, Z, and we did it. We got it done. And there's a sense of accomplishment and brotherhood that is born out of these fraternal organizations, which is really beautiful. And I am not a Mason, but I will just mention that there are non-Boy Scout fraternal organizations that literally go back hundreds and hundreds of years. So I think there's something to it because males have been able to identify that when we are around females, we're a little bit different than when we're one-on-one with our boys. And men, I think this isn't rocket science, men are able to bond more easily than females do for, I don't know what reason. I'm not quite the philosopher that can lay out the words to articulate why I'm saying, girls can't. Oh, I'm not a girl, okay? I don't want to ramble too much on that topic. But boys can have this amazing friendship and camaraderie with fellow boys in Scouts. And when I was a young man, Scouts was something that I really did care about. I cared about it more than I cared about the church I was a part of. I cared more about it than many of my school activities. It was just as important as my school friends that I saw every day. It was just that important because some of the activities we did were just so much fun. And I am a lifelong rock climber and mountaineer now. And that is definitely in part because of Scouts. Because Scouts got me into rock climbing somewhat. I was into rock climbing by like age 8 actually, but I got to get a merit badge for it, which got me even more into it. I ended up like getting my own rope and climbing shoes and harness when I was only like 15 years old. Okay, like before I could drive. And then when I started driving, I started taking my friends out rock climbing, like school friends out rock climbing and stuff. And trust me, I used that to definitely get some girls one-on-one to teach them the skill that I love so much, teach them how to rappel, how to climb. So, using those skills you learn in Scouts and bringing it to your real world experience and basically leveraging those skills you learn in scouting. Some of the skills that we learn in scouting could easily just be almost completely forgotten, such as sailing. How to sail. I don't think a lot of people know this, but sailing is very complicated and it is very scary if at your first one or two goes, because if you go out on a lake or on the ocean, anywhere, and it is a windy day, not only can you start going very fast, and I'm talking like over like 10, 15 knots in a sailboat. Like a quick sailboat, you can get going pretty quick. Like that. And I think that's the equivalent of like 35 miles an hour or something. And when you're close to the water, trust me, that feels like 60 miles an hour. Because if you jump off your boat at that speed, it like, you know, it'll hurt. And the other thing is, not only are you going fast, but if you turn or you bring in your sail too much, that wind will blow you right over, and you'll capsize and you'll get wet, and it's scary. It's a really scary experience when you're in the open ocean, because if you capsize and you don't know how to right your boat, the sail can end up going all the way underwater and your boat's upside down. And to get it all the way back up, like, you need to have a united team of people that know what they're doing on how to pull on the rudder underneath the boat to bring it back up. Okay, that's just one example, guys. Sailing. There's so many skills I learned in the Boy Scouts that could truly be lost on people. Like in school. Schools do not actually teach you how to budget. Like, there's not a single class I've ever taken in school that teaches you how to make a budget until you get to like college. Maybe in high school there are some classes provided as electives, but there's no required math class that says budgeting. In Boy Scouts, you actually do learn how to budget. That's something all Scouts will learn how to do. And there's just, you know, I could ramble on. And the cool thing about Scouting also is they're evolving. So they've been adding merit badges for years. Like, some of the newer ones include like computer science, basic game development, radio frequency like analysis or something. Like, I think I even have a merit badge on like nuclear physics, like the basics of nuclear physics, like how a nuclear reactor works. And, you know, to this day I remember odd things like how for some stupid reason the US all uses like basic cold water coolant systems in their nuclear reactors, when we had a system that used something called heavy water. And the cool thing about heavy water, or was it, I don't think it was heavy water, it's heavy something, but the cool thing about it is if it gets too hot, it'll evaporate all the liquids and it will turn off the plant automatically. Meaning all of the liquids evaporate, and basically you have a solid block now, and none of the molecules can move nearly as quickly. Everything's trapped in basically cement, cement-like substance. And all the water's just left, and so now you're left with this giant block. Nothing gets in or out. It's just basically a cement yard now. Now, in America, we all use water-cooled nuclear reactors, which is stupid because they can melt down. And because of how they use water, that water is radioactive. If you get a Fukushima situation, you're just putting a whole bunch of radiation in the ocean now. Like, it's a nightmare. So to this day, I've got a small amount of information about nuclear physics that the average person doesn't know. I could elaborate on that too, actually, now that I think of it, but I don't need to. I just want to close this video off just saying the Boy Scouts was an amazing thing. It provided information to me as a young man that I don't think I would be able to get any other way. Because how do you learn to sail? How do you learn to swim in a cold lake? Or how do you learn to canoe? Who has a canoe these days? Kayak, rapids. I don't even remember a fraction of all the merit badges out there. Oh, basic knife safety and axe safety. Basic first aid. CPR as well. The list goes on, guys. Point being is, I learned a lot, and I loved my experiences in the Boy Scouts of America, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. I really wouldn't. And to see this happening is a little bit heartbreaking, because I really, really can't express enough how much I looked forward to raising my own son someday in the Boy Scouts of America, and being able to be either a Boy Scout leader or at least a merit badge counselor for rock climbing and several others probably. But I mean, all right, last thought here. Sorry I got cut off, but there's tons of skills, and it's heartbreaking to think that I can't have this amazing organization to facilitate what I want to do with my boys. And hopefully I have boys. I don't have any kids yet, but it's something that was really special for me. And my dad was involved somewhat in scouts when I was a boy, but he was never the scout master or anything when I was the senior patrol leader. So it gave me this experience where outside of my family unit, I was able to display leadership with other males, and it really has impacted me, I think, to this day, where there's a number of things that I do that's second nature for me, and I have a host, just a number of friends that there's a number of things that they do not do because of subconscious reasons. For example, let's say I tell a friend, hey man, you want to go rock climbing? To me, I know everything that I need to do to go rock climbing, and I know everything that's needed, and I even know like special ways to help yourself be safe and avoid injury. And if you do get injury, like I've got a first aid kit in my car, but the list goes on. They will say no. They'll come up with a reason why they can't go. But the reason why is probably, more often than not, because they're a little bit intimidated by rock climbing outdoors. If I say, let's go gym rock climbing, I'll get literally like double the number of yeses, if not triple or quadruple, And I don't even rock climb all that much anymore compared to what I did when I was younger. But man, it's hard to really articulate just how many things the Boy Scouts of America is failing on now, that they have basically destroyed themselves. And they have destroyed themselves, and they will go belly up in short order when all these lawsuits start going through, parents blaming the Boy Scouts of America for facilitating all kinds of terrible things that will happen. They will. It's just a matter of time. Unless, literally one chaperone for every child. That's the only way to avoid this from being like a real regular problem within the Scouts. Because unless you have a one-on-one ratio of adults to children, I just don't see it being a safe place for kids. That's simple, guys. I hope you learned something. I hope you, if you share my attitudes, please give me a like and subscribe. There's a lot of interesting things I cover in my channel. And more than anything, guys, I'd really like to hear what you think. What do you think? Do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm wrong? Why? Were you a scout? I'd really like to know that too, because if you're a scout and you think this is a problem or it's not a problem, I want to know your opinion more than others. I really do. So please respond, and love to hear from you guys. And maybe I'll do a part 2 video to this in a month or something to share what some of you have said and my thoughts to it. So thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one. Constellations from a TV screen, and for the